Welcome into another edition of New Track Record Podcast. Caleb Hatch, Justin Kinney with you from the WELT studios. Plenty to discuss this week. Of course, we timed it wrong again last week. This is 2 weeks in a row? All the news breaks the day after we record.
So be ready for big news coming out Friday from IndyCar or Dale Coyne or something.
We'll get the second coin officially announced tomorrow because we're recording this on Thursday, February 5th. So, we'll get something crazy announced tomorrow because that's just our luck. But hello, Justin.
Hello, Caleb. How are you?
Doing all right. We're getting through winter. We're getting through it.
It sucks, man.
At least we have the Super Bowl this weekend, and then Winter Olympics have started. You've been
I've been watching curling.
Yeah, you've been texting me curling updates. So
I'm all in on
Italians
on
upset on home ice.
Yes, their home sheet. They lost today to the Canadians. But, I was thinking about it on the way here to record the podcast. It's not that we have an abnormal amount of snow this winter compared to most winters. It's just it isn't going anywhere.
Yes.
It's been cold for seemingly ever. So usually it snows and then gets above freezing and it melts and most of it's gone before it snows again. None of the snow is going anywhere. And as we were walking in today, it's snowing. So we're adding to the piles of snow that are all over the place. But now we're just less than a month away from the start of the IndyCar season in sunny St. Pete. It cannot come soon enough.
Yeah, and we still don't know if we'll see Prema on site or some team formerly known as Prema. It emerges from the ashes of Prema. Still waiting on that. Maybe that's the story that breaks tomorrow.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe that's the news we get tomorrow is Chevy has either yanked those two engine leases or Prema has confirmed. So, who knows what's going to come out tomorrow. Just guaranteed it will be something.
Well, we do have a massive story to talk about that, of course, was announced the day after we recorded.
And after we said it was a long shot for this thing to happen.
Yes, and it's official. The Freedom 250 is set as part of the America 250 celebration this summer. IndyCar on the streets of Washington, D.C. President Trump signed an executive order last Friday. Cuts through a lot of the red tape for this event. We don't have a track layout yet. Understanding is that needs to be set and confirmed by next Friday. They had about a 2-week window for that. You have a news as far as a promoter coming on in terms of who's going to help, and that's Monumental Sports and Entertainment is going to help with marketing and sponsorship sales for this event.
They are very established in the D.C. area. So
they own the Washington Wizards in the NBA, the Washington Mystics in the WNBA, and the Washington Capitals in the NHL. Own those teams and their respective arenas. And like you said, established in terms of in the D.C. area and D.C. sports. And just like we have with Arlington, with the Dallas Cowboys and Texas Rangers taking part with the track running around there. This will be a different track layout. Tony Kottman expected to have a role per Marshall Pruitt in bringing this track together. And they worked on it for months and months and months. And as of now, it's confirmed on the schedule. We have 6 road courses, 6 street courses, 6 ovals. Pretty interesting schedule. That's nice. 18 races. We finally get above 17 for the first time. I think since 2014, I believe. You'd have to fact check me on that because I'm not 100%. But it has been quite some time since IndyCar had more than 17 races on the schedule. So either way, we didn't think they'd pull it off. They couldn't pull it off last summer. And we'll play back an interesting quote from Mark Miles. And we'll kind of talk about all the different angles of this event. But either way, if it does happen as scheduled, we talk about IndyCar needing more marquee events. We talk about IndyCar needing races in the Northeast. And while this will truly be a one-off, we're not expecting this to happen in 27 and 28 and beyond. This is a huge step for IndyCar. And I understand there's a lot of politics involved in this event. But if you're an IndyCar fan and you have perhaps the only way to top a race like this would be racing the streets of Manhattan and New York City. This is phenomenal in terms of exposure for IndyCar. The race will be on Fox. Yeah, we talked about the promotion, the marketing, the sales aspect. Tickets will generally be free to the public,
which is crazy
to
me. Amazing.
I mean, all in all, you have to be excited. I understand a lot of people are upset because of the political aspect of this. I get it, but this is checking a lot of boxes that people say they want to happen. And whether you agree or disagree with President Trump on policy issues, his presidency, whatever, this is checking the boxes that IndyCar fans have been craving, who've been crying, have been whatever adjective you want to say about
begging, borrowing, stealing,
yes.
right?
Yes.
19 races in 2013.
Okay.
Which is went back a lot deeper than I thought. Now, 3 of those races were headers.
18 and 14. So it's yes.
Yes. Yes. Look, in this country right now, it is very difficult to take politics out of anything. And you and I are in agreement that we like our racing without politics being involved, no matter what side of the aisle you are on. And I understand certain people on a certain side of the aisle not being happy with this because of who is involved and how it's come about. But you mentioned the positives for IndyCar. This is as marquee can get for this series outside of the Indianapolis 500 since I don't know when. In terms of an event,
yeah, I don't know.
I can't tell you. So
the Michigan or the US 500, all for the wrong reasons, of course.
It's just it hits so many home runs in terms of when you look at what IndyCar needs to do to grow its footprint. And we're going to go back and forth about risk involved here in a little bit, but you look at it and say, the concern we had last week when we were recording is who's paying for this? Well, the government is footing the bill. And I know some people, government doesn't even picking. I understand that. But what's another $30 million in a $7 trillion debt or whatever?
It's
right?
nothing.
It's nothing. So look, the government spends money on stupid stuff regardless of who is in office all the time. Okay. So that is an argument. I'm kind of like, yeah, whatever. So you're effectively not paying much, if anything, for this race. You just have to show up and race. Now, that can also be dangerous in terms of not having control of what's going on. So those are all things we're going to delve into in a little bit. But adding another race with the marquee event status of this race, it wasn't NASCAR that was approached for this. It wasn't Formula One, which would have been impossible anyway for various reasons.
It wasn't IMSA.
It wasn't
IMSA. Mazda MX-5 Cup, though that would be awesome. And
it'd be nice to have them on board for this, right?
That they could be a support series or a Stadium Super Trucks as well. As Marshall Pruitt kind of had a really good story about what we know and what we don't know about the newest race. So let's go through kind of some of those logistics things, and then we'll kind of get to the positives, and we mentioned some, and the concerns. Which we've also mentioned some. Indy Lights, not going to be a part of it. Radical Cup North America maybe could be another support series. This will be August 21st through 23rd, so you're going to have support series. In terms of the costs for the teams, so Penske's going to boost Leader Circle payouts to the 22 contract holders to include an 18th race. That will help teams searching for the range of $250,000 or so in terms of adding sponsors. And the engine leases, we believe, will be unchanged. They'll absorb the mileage. Now, in terms of, okay, what about these additional costs for the teams? All in all, the teams have basically said their phones are blowing up for sponsorship. Graham Rahal already tweeted that, this is the most he's had people reach out to him for an event, outside of an Indy 500. So it's, in terms of the interest, it's absolutely there for this event. You have, as we mentioned, Monumental Sports Entertainment on board for sponsorships, for sales. I'm sure we'll have suites and all things like that. So I think the teams can work past the concerns. Graham saying that it's not just that it's the single most calls he's ever received to sponsor us in a race, more than an Indy 500 I've ever competed in. He also said, I've had several sponsors call and offer to be primary sponsor for more than just DC, just to earn the right to be on the primary for there. So that shows you the interest is there. This is a grand slam in terms of the cachet of the event, as you mentioned. So that's the good thing. And that's kind of some of the logistical things we talked about. We don't have a layout yet. We should expect it hopefully end of next week. And beyond that, I mean, I feel like they have the other logistical things figured out. Because it was an executive order, there's a lot less red tape to make this go forward. So you want to talk about the concerns now?
Yeah, just kind of piggybacking off that, it just a lot of the concerns that we're going to talk about were eliminated based on what was announced, right? The layout for this race sounds like it's been months in the making. I would imagine it's probably already done. They're just trying to make sure that certain streets are going to be able to be closed for, I'm sure it's Tony Kottman's design with NZ Consulting in terms of laying this layout out. So much to like and really be excited about with this event, which we know is a one-off event, but could it be a springboard to a potential East Coast event somewhere else? Could it be the DC race turns into a street race in, I don't know, Philly? Something like that.
Going back to Pocono, Richmond,
right? I mean, that's where IndyCar needs to be, is that Northeast, when we talk about what areas of the country IndyCar is lacking in. And you never know. All it takes is one or two sponsors for a team for this race saying, hey, we'd really be interested in being a title sponsor for a race at Pocono or Richmond, or we know some people in Philly that would be interested in closing off some streets to have a street race there. What about Pittsburgh? I know it's a little bit of a more of a haul, I guess, not directly northeast, but it's in the area, right? And then you throw into the DC Metroplex, and who knows, if we can have a race in Markham, we can have a race in Norfolk, or a street race in Richmond. I don't know. I'm just throwing a bunch of ideas out there. So that's kind of an added bonus is, yes, it's a one-off, but could it lead to a more concrete presence in the Northeast in the years ahead?
Now, in terms of, I think, some notable things from the announcement, I did think it was notable and of interest that Roger Penske was there, but who was not there? Doug Bowles was not there, from what I saw, president of IndyCar, and then Mark Miles, who's in charge of Penske Entertainment, also not there. So I thought that was fascinating. It's also really good if this race is in August.
Yes.
Or that it's free, because the race is in August.
It's going to be hot as hell.
Yeah, just absolutely miserable humidity in DC that time of year. So that's a positive that there are free tickets available.
DC's built in a swamp.
Yes.
So people are
a literal swamp.
A literal swamp. So it is hot in DC in August.
So I guess let's dig into our concerns, because it checks the Northeast race box. It checks a marquee event. So now you have Washington, D.C., you have Arlington, you have Markham, you have Phoenix. There's a lot of storylines and intrigue with the 2026 schedule. On the concern side, one, anytime you're working with a government entity, there are concerns about pulling off a race. For every Long Beach and St. Pete and even Detroit, right? You have concerns. Is this, a Boston 2.0 or a Qingdao China 2.0, where those events never happened, or right. Baltimore, where it got off the ground with great fanfare and then had 2 years and it was completely gone after 2 years. Actually went to the second or third, I guess it was 3 years. Yeah, I went to, I believe, the third Baltimore race. Cool track, cool event, cool setting, but street races are really hard. And when you have change in leadership, which there will not be, as far as we know, working with the federal government at this level, that's always the concern. So I guess that alleviates that concern, but there's still always a concern working with a government entity and in pulling something off like this, and just the short timeline. We understand they've been working on it for at least 6 months prior to this. They had was it 71 meetings, they said, or 81 meetings? It was 71 or 81 meetings with the administration, and they were able to figure it out and make it happen. But there's still a concern because of the timeline. I guess that's my biggest concern.
And I agree with you. If it was just a normal run of the mill event like Boston, like China, stuff like that. But the fact that it's for America's 250th birthday, and for better or for worse, President Donald Trump is involved. One thing you can say about Donald Trump is he makes the impossible possible. Now, whether you agree with the impossible being made possible is another story. But I just feel like this means so much to him in terms of the America 250 celebration that he's not going to let it fail. Now, one of the concerns could be in terms of if IndyCar looks at it and be like, man, this is going to be not in terms of the design, in terms of the prep, and it's like, this is just not going to be a good show overall. I could see it still being pushed through by Trump and the government because they're not going to let this thing not happen. So I think maybe that would be a possibility where IndyCar is just like, we can't make this work in terms of a layout, or the layout's very vanilla. There's not a lot of passing zones. There's not a lot.
That's peak IndyCar. Stuff, right? You already have me concerned. It's like we have this big event, and then people tune in, and it's a snoozer.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I think naturally the background and the shots are going to help, but who's to say this isn't just one big kind of like
parade?
Yeah, a parade, like a big rectangle around the National Mall type thing, right? So that's one of my concerns too. I think once we see the layout and hopefully it's a good one, then maybe that's something. And then just unforeseen circumstances. You never know what's going to happen in the nation's capital where things that you expect to happen don't happen or can't happen in terms of traffic flow, in terms of closing things off. Like, you just never know. So,
let alone the security involved for having such a large scale event on federal grounds that's a concern.
It's a concern. And I imagine the president will want to be there in some capacity. So that's a whole nother level of security, right? So like I said earlier, I don't like IndyCar being in bed with politicians. I don't like it. But the positives in terms of if everybody pulls their weight and pulls this off is a tremendous, tremendous positive for IndyCar. How many times have we heard from everybody? We've said it. Take some chances, right? Try events, and maybe they don't work, but at least try something. You have NASCAR going to Chicago. You have NASCAR even going back to they're doing dirt races, right? And now they're going to Coronado and Formula One. Of course, they can just throw money at anything and take chances, right? When is IndyCar going to take a chance? This is a chance that IndyCar gets to take, and it doesn't have its ass on the line in terms of a lot of financial commitment. Because that was the thing, right? Well, Roger Penske's not going to spend money.
We thought,
to try things.
Is Fox going to pay for a lot? How would this work? Well, the government's paying for it.
Yeah.
And you're concerned about, working with politicians. I mean, IndyCar would lose over a third of its schedule if they didn't have St. Pete, gone. Long Beach, gone. Detroit, gone. Markham, gone. Obviously, Streets of Washington would be gone. Even Laguna Seca, last I remember, I mean, there's a deal between the county there and the promoter who runs the track. I mean,
right.
There are a lot of concerns. So the thing to me with this event is it's either a grand slam or a catastrophic failure.
But I think it could be a failure without it hurting IndyCar long-term because the financials wouldn't be there. And the optics are like, well, we tried something and it didn't work. And, we're going to keep going because that's what we want IndyCar to do is try things. And so I'm fine with it. I thought Marshall Pruitt had a good point. I think it was in the mailbag is the people that are so against it. IndyCar has taken money by the hundreds of millions from tobacco companies.
Yeah.
Right?
IMS took $100 million a decade ago from the state of Indiana for upgrades.
That's true.
Ahead of the 100th running.
But in terms of trivial sponsors, right? Cigarettes kill people, but by gosh, it was Team Marlboro forever, right? Alcohol. How many people die every year because of drunk driving? But by gosh, Miller Genuine Draft, needs to be on Bobby Rahal's car, blah, blah, blah. Even gun companies have had history in auto racing. So let's not be this righteous being, especially if you're on the other side of the aisle, where it's like, oh, we can't possibly partner with the Republican Party for this race, right? Racing has been in bed with dangerous entities or entities that people don't like since the inception of auto racing, right? So, to me, this is just a great opportunity, and whether it's one and done in terms of, okay, they couldn't make anything worse work elsewhere in the Northeast going forward, oh well, but it's going to look pretty darn good on TV, and that's another thing. This doesn't happen without the affiliation and ownership of Fox. Fox is kind of that third party that was definitely on board with this. So how long have we said, man, it'd be great to have a broadcaster that was really invested in the series? Now you definitely have it because they own part of the series. So this stuff can't happen if IndyCar was still on NBC or Versus, right? And stuff like that. Because the clout that Fox has made this possible. So grin and bear it for the people that don't like it, but I think it's really, really good for IndyCar in general.
F1 would lose a quarter of their schedule if they eliminated
They're racing in Saudi Arabia, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Bahrain,
you look at China, Bahrain,
rights,
Saudi Arabia.
They drew the line
you
in
look at
Russia,
Azerbaijan. You look at...
They drew the line in Russia, though.
Qatar, Abu Dhabi. I mean, that's 6 races right there. They'd have to cut minimum.
That are
there are probably others I'm forgetting.
By countries with human rights violations
yeah.
and stuff like that. So let's not all of a sudden throw shade at IndyCar because they're you're partnering up with somebody that is let's be real, is very unpopular in America in terms of the presidential polls. Okay, so this is nothing new in auto racing, and quite frankly, nothing new for IndyCar in terms of being involved with somebody or somebody's or entities that people find unwelcoming or dangerous. Going back to cigarette companies and alcohol companies.
I just hope we're looking at this, and though it's a one-off, I hope we're looking at this event as the same in terms of the excitement and even the on-track action that we saw with the Nashville street race, and not thinking this is, a Hawaiian Super Prix 2.0 where it never gets off the ground.
Yeah, right.
And it looks good on paper and it's on the schedule. That's my ultimate concern.
Yeah, I'm not anticipating a banger on the streets of Washington, D.C. Okay, I think if you can put a solid product out there, it's not processional, but it's not riveting. I think it's good because you want to go there, present a show, take what you're being given by the government, and then get the heck out of there. And hopefully you can carry some of those people to watch because, as you mentioned to me, like, what's the rating for this? Could it beat the Indianapolis 500?
I mean, perhaps in terms of the lead-in for this event, which I'm not entirely sure. I think one of our listeners sent us, what the likely lead-in would be for this. I'll see if I can pull that up. So I can't recall, but I mean, is it a baseball game? Probably, which would be solid, right? I mean, that would be a solid lead-in in terms of to this race. So I hope we're looking at something that at a minimum could challenge. Here we go. Well, here's a bummer. Live Golf allegedly won't be the lead-in, which Live Golf gets horrendous ratings. So I don't know if that's going to help, but thanks to Tyler Wong for sending that our way a few days ago. But at least it's a sporting event lead-in.
Right.
And that's more helpful than not. And Nashville could perhaps have a bigger rating just because the World Cup final is leading in to it. And if you get some stars in the final, that would help immensely in terms of the Nashville race. as long as they're not having a super long post-match thing beyond, crowning the champ and the raising of the trophy and a little bit in studio before you go right to IndyCar, and make sure you go right into the race starting if you want to get a good rating. But yeah, I mean, you look at those 3 events and it's not a given which event is you would think the Indy 500 is number 1,
right?
But who's in second? I mean, it's up for debate, and
it's definitely
potentially,
DC, in my opinion,
potentially between Nashville with the World Cup final lead-in, which is going to have massive numbers, and with Washington D.C. I mean, we have a legit 3 mega events, and we're not even talking about Long Beach.
Absolutely, and don't discount the amount of media attention this race will get outside of traditional outlets for IndyCar.
Yes.
Because of the polarization of politics in this country, both sides are going to point to this event for all the right or the wrong reasons. And those things tend to bring in viewers.
You look at the initial reports on this. You first had Punchbowl News broke the story that Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy very much interested in bringing an IndyCar race to DC, and that was followed by the story by NBC News saying, "Hey, Trump's going to sign an executive order today for an IndyCar race." So those are the sources. Like, we're talking political power players in this era. We're not talking, we're not talking ESPN or Fox Sports or The Athletic, which they'll all cover this.
Yes. I mean,
you're reaching a different audience because you're involving the nation's capital and a presidential administration.
I mean, Politico had a story.
Exactly.
On it. I mean, Politico is a major political news site in this country, and they ran a story. So I think that's an additional advantage for this race, is it's going to appear in media outside of the traditional things, even more so than the Indianapolis 500 does nowadays. And so for me, I feel like more attention on it for whatever reason, the better. Because as we've mentioned, right, well, it seems like IndyCar only gets picked up by certain networks or outlets in if there's a big crash or an injury, right?
Yes.
This is a race, because it is going to be a very big thing for the summer of this year, with events surrounding America 250, and IndyCar is going to be front and center for it, literally around the National Mall. And if you would have, this is exactly what all of us have been hoping for and begging for since Roger Penske took over, is take some chances. And he's taking a chance here without really having to spend too much money.
Best case scenario.
Right?
Couple of little things about this event. First off, they already had drivers promoting this. You had Alexander Rossi in DC at, I believe, a Wizards game earlier this week for the Freedom 250 event. You had the website freedom250gp.com, so you can get details for updates there. Adam Stern pulled this story from a Detroit Free Press article that Bud Denker, who's with kind of the right-hand man of Roger Penske with Penske Entertainment, said on February 2nd they were prepared to shut the idea down as late as January 22nd until Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, and Trump, with his executive order, stepped in. Plan B, which did not require congressional approval. So, I mean, this was pretty much, okay, we're going to give up, but then they made it happen. So I think IndyCar's dogged determination on this event also, I think says that they're really trying to go after, they're trying to make a splash. And that's, at minimum, what this event will do.
I think the one concern that I would have is the government, the Transportation Secretary, Donald Trump, not leaning on IndyCar enough and saying, oh, we can handle this. We can handle all the logistics and planning and marketing and that stuff. You just show up and race, right? That's the worry for me, because IndyCar, despite what you think about and we say about maybe where they missed the mark, they know how to run race weekends. They know how to put things like this together and facilitate and help and market and sponsor and operations and everything, right? And so even when you talk about adding a marketing and sponsor company at the level that they are, they don't know anything about auto racing and setting up a street track and maybe promoting a street race. So those things I hope they look to IndyCar to help with, because they know which buttons to push, and they will do a great job in making sure this thing goes off with as much of without a hitch as possible.
The government's job in this is essentially to eliminate roadblocks from making this happen.
Right.
And ensuring that they have a track layout that's ready to go and they can get the proper permits and street closures and all that. And the Washington, D.C. mayor, based on quotes in the press releases, sounded on board for this event. So that's another positive sign.
Probably didn't have an option anyway.
Probably not. But
Anyway.
either way, just to see that, I think, is positive as well. Any final thoughts on this?
I think it's going to be fascinating to watch over the next 6 months to see how this thing comes together, because there is so much to get done in 6 months. There's going to be some hiccups. There's going to be some hurdles. There may be even some times where we talk about, does this even happen? The job of everybody involved, from the United States government all the way down to the teams, is to make sure this happens. And A, for the government, shows the pride in America, and B, for IndyCar to try to grab some more fans with an event that none of us thought could ever happen.
Yeah, no, this event was never in our wildest dreams. Like, the fact that he was entertained last summer was like, oh, that's cool, but that'll never happen. Just focus on Mexico City. Well, they found the one event that could top going to Mexico City, with having Pato O'Ward as obviously a superstar in the series and in Mexico and in the States, for that matter. At least Arlington will be close enough to help kind of showcase that as well. All right, we'll move on, and we got an article on Prema that was just dropped by Racer.com talking about their options and what IndyCar is looking to do. IndyCar would obviously have 2 grid spaces available for other teams to fill without the threat of being bumped from each event if Prema cannot go. 25 charter cars, Prema, the 2 extra. Again, they cannot be bumped. It's when you get to 28 that you would have bumping. Doug Bowles with some quotes on this. They prefer, if they're going to have more than 25, they want someone competing the full season. And then kind of go from there is in terms of, they're having to extend deadlines, and
which is kind of silly. Like, they want more. If they're going to have more than 25 cars, they want them to be doing the entire season. Well, what's the incentive for teams to do the entire season when they're not part of the charter system?
The charter system, I think, is one of the biggest mistakes IndyCar has made in the Penske Entertainment era.
Yeah, the more I read this quote, the more absurd it is Doug Bowles. I know he's got to toe the company line, but you guys are the ones that set the charters at 25 cars. And now you're saying, well, if we have 27, it'd be nice if they were full-timers. Again, what's the incentive? It's miraculous that Prema even agreed to it for one season to not be part of the charter system.
The last thing IndyCar needs to do is push away potential new team owners, as Marshall Pruitt has talked about extensively this offseason. And I fully agree. It's a silly move, and it's not fostering open competition, which is what racing in theory should be about.
Should be all about.
But in reality, it's all about closed competition and, eliminating the things that make racing great. And unfortunately, that's what IndyCar has done for the better part of 30 years, at least under the series that survived. I'm not talking CART, I'm talking IRL/IndyCar.
Well, and don't discount the effects it could have on Indy 500 car counts in the future as well.
Yes.
We're barely getting to 33 most years, and occasionally we have a 34th. I mean, that's not healthy for the Indianapolis 500 in terms of having a full field year after year after year. I mean, how many times has IndyCar effectively had to pay for a team to run an extra car to make sure there's 33? And that was even before all this charter system and all this stuff. And the rumors continue to swirl that at some point in the near future, they want to trim that charter system down to 22 cars at most. And then you're having to add, 11 extra cars for the 500 just to get to 33? It's going to be tough.
Kind of sounds like 25-8 rule almost.
A little bit. We're guaranteeing your cars will be in as long as you run extra cars that aren't automatically in to ensure we get to 33 or 34. It's just silly.
Silly indeed. All right. If you agree or disagree with us on DC, on Prima, on whatever, we'd love for you to interact with us. You can always find us on social media. Our handle on Twitter and Instagram is IndyCar Podcast. On Facebook, just search for New Track Record. You can also email us your questions, comments, rants, concerns, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com. You can support us via Patreon, patreon.com/newtrackrecord. Thanks to Reed and others for their support. And as always, download and listen on your favorite podcasting platform, whether that is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. All right, mailbag time, and obviously a lot of people with opinions on Washington, D.C., and that event being pulled off, at least for now, on the schedule. So first, you posted a poll, and this is about what I expected, roughly 75-25 in terms of the race being announced and initial thoughts. 73% of you said yay, and nearly 27% said nay.
Which is, look, I understand politics looms large in this country, and the separation between the two major parties seems to grow every day. But outside of politics being involved, which I know for some people is impossible to overcome, what's the negative for this race? There is none.
No.
In my opinion.
And IndyCar's risking so little. Like, they're risking financially, it seems next to nothing. Correct. Now, they're risking things in terms of public perception.
Yeah, image.
Image, like that, yes. Right? But that you can come back from.
Yes.
A massive financial loss, IndyCar cannot necessarily come back from based on how they operate. Yes, Roger Penske's a billionaire, but he doesn't operate IndyCar by just throwing buku amounts of money all the time. He wants it to be a profitable business entity. Understandably so.
Right.
Sometimes to our frustration. But comments on the poll, 100's way 67. And again, some of the people are going to talk about politics. He said, "Here come the whiners, get over it and celebrate and support IndyCar, the greatest racing series on the planet." I understand people's concerns, though. Poet Shevchenko said, "If you don't like it, it's a one-off race. If you like it, it's a one-off race." I think the IndyCar being selected over all the other American sports to have the 250th anniversary celebratory event is pretty neat. RacerMac RTP1 said, "Anyone mad about it needs to just understand one thing. It could have been NASCAR invited. Take the win and the publicity, put your political opinions aside. My only concern is how much more it's going to screw up DC traffic."
Yeah, everything we've heard and stuff, DC traffic is terrible. So
yeah. Have you ever been to DC? Yeah, it's not fun.
No, it is not. But I would imagine this will be as minimal can be in terms of when they put the race up, in terms of everything up, and when they take it down. I could see, 2 weeks total that this being disrupting around the National Mall.
Swinebro666 said it's terrible publicity. LX on the Rock said, "I just hope they can pull this off." Also, Real Bud Walker said, "Great news and a truly unique event in several ways. Drivers and sponsors seem excited. Only meltdowns are non-fans and some IndyCar YouTubers." Again, you can't take the politics out of the event. That's just kind of the reality. And then Run_Mark_Run said, "I say you seem to record a day early every week." Yeah, it's a trend. And then this is my take as well. Jordan_Willman said, "It's all loudmouth noise until I see a car on track." I'd say that sums up perfectly how I feel. I want this event to happen, but I got to see it to believe it. That's my biggest concern. There's so much going into it. It's hard to know if it's truly going to happen.
I think what's interesting is I put this poll up earlier, and it's got very little votes. Only 35 right now, so maybe this is a more accurate conversation for next week. But when we put up the poll, which new IndyCar event on the 2026 schedule are you looking forward to the most? The one that we feel has the biggest impact on IndyCar is actually the third
I was very surprised.
Looking forward to.
I was very surprised. Is number one still Arlington?
By a sizable margin at 49%, Phoenix at 26%, and then DC at 20%. So,
and then Markham last.
So we'll wait until next week where we have significantly more votes, over the next couple of days. Hopefully we get more input. But I found those early vote returns kind of interesting.
I had some fun. IndyCar announced a Washington, D.C. street race before Coyne announced their second driver. Wild. A few fun replies. It's from Tudor Indy. TBA has always wanted to race in Washington. Poet Shevchenko said, what will be announced first? 2028 chassis renders and engine formula or second Coyne driver? Getting down to the deadline.
I mean, we have a Sebring test next week,
yes.
Right? So for Prema and Coyne, we want to figure it out.
Yeah. One would think. They're running out of time to figure it out. Elsewhere on the mailbag, let's see. Also, this is from Swinebro, said, honestly think they want NASCAR, but as they race every weekend, they had to settle for IndyCar in terms of the DC race. This is one situation where it did benefit IndyCar.
Yes.
Where NASCAR is just simply not available because they race 35, 36 times a year. I think IndyCar's more limited schedule gave them more dates and more opportunity to make it. They had 2 weekends in August that they could do it, and they found a way to make those dates work, which I think is good. Okay, I posted a poll. How confident are you in the Washington, D.C. IndyCar race happening as scheduled? Nearly 36% of you said very confident. About 34.5% of you said somewhat confident. Nearly 19% of you said somewhat not confident, and about 11% of you said not at all confident. I think I voted somewhat not confident. There's just so much at play with this. I want to believe it'll happen, but I feel like I'm at like a 4 or 5 out of 10.
I perhaps stupidly was very confident because in this respect, the government being involved and the occasion for which it's celebrating is very important to...
They have one shot to make it happen.
Correct.
They'll make it happen. Yeah. Understandable.
That's my thought.
A few replies. Marty Williams, 63, said, will it go ahead? Almost definitely. Will it be a bleep show with many things not being ready? Probably. Lynn _IndyCar said, this should be interesting. 6 months to do it seems impossible. Is IndyCar hiring Tom Cruise and Ving Rhames? Mission Impossible reference there for those unaware. And then Tyler Wong, 65, said, with 6 months to build the track and a lot of planning, I'm still 50-50. I understand it, and that's kind of where I'm at. And Matthew Embury said, need to wait until 2027 if they want it to be successful. The roads to be utilized were badly damaged last summer and have not been repaired. There's not a suitable paddock nor pit facility that can sustain 27 cars safely unless there's an extreme pit speed limit. Look, they clearly have thought about this. This is a one shot. You can't do it in 2027. It's simply
America
this year
251 doesn't hit as much as America 250. So I think people do need to remember that the planning for this race didn't start at the announcement. It's been going on for months. So hopefully some of the issues that responders have brought up, which are legitimate issues, they have plans for.
And then I think this is the final one. This from That's So Easy Sports. It'll either be a fantastic show, regardless of politics, or it could turn into, and it's a photo of the Hawaiian Super Prix, $10 million invitational that was supposed to be November 11th through 13th in 1999 on an airport track in Oahu. Yeah, obviously we know how that turned out. It did not turn out, period. So that is a look at the mailbag for this week. Thanks for all the entries. We shift to news and notes. Obviously not a whole lot going on beyond what we talked about, and rightfully so. That's a big topic. Let's roll through it. Okay, let's talk liveries. For Arrow McLaren unveiled their liveries, pretty similar to what we've seen. I love that they do the reveal and the international broadcast thing on streaming on YouTube. I like how they do this. I think it's cool. The cars, I mean, they look how they always look.
Yeah,
in a good way. That
was a big reveal.
Plenty of papaya.
Plenty of papaya.
That's meanwhile, Alex Pallot's DHL machine, a lot more yellow. They released a video, and Alex Blow just kept saying, more yellow, more yellow, more yellow. So more yellow with that car. The Homes for Our Troops livery unveiled for Santino Ferrucci. Remember, that's a full season sponsorship this year. Looks very similar to what we've seen in past Indy 500s. So it's cool that, again, they have that for the full season. And then Will Power's TWG AI Honda livery unveiled by Andretti Global. We're not seeing Gamebridge, but black and yellow colors once again.
Yeah, it looked all right.
Yeah, all right. That's how I would describe it. Elsewhere, congrats to Nick Yeoman of IndyCar Radio, who has been named as the co-anchor in the PRN, which is Performance Racing Network, one of the two networks that covers NASCAR for the 2026 season. He'll join Brad Gilley in the PRN booth. So we'll probably be hearing a lot less Nick Yeoman on the IndyCar side, as he'll be pretty busy with NASCAR for at least half the schedule. But congrats to him. Obviously a huge honor for him and moving up. We go back to Indy 500 related stuff, and Joey Barnes of motorsport.com asked Zach Brown about would you ever do a reunion with Fernando Alonso for the Indy 500? And he said, yes, I still bug him about it. And wants it to happen. Obviously, Alonso in the final year of his deal with Aston Martin in F1, still just missing the Indy 500 in terms of the Triple Crown. And there's a great quote in this story that I had to share by Zach Brown. He said, I think we've got a car that can win the Indy 500, and I think he's very capable of winning the Indy 500. Thoroughly enjoyed racing with him here. He enjoyed it all but one of the years, but loved the first year. I mean, it was magic.
All but one.
All but one. I think we all remember what that 1 year was.
That's kind of funny.
I thought that was great. Mick Schumacher checked off his first oval test at Homestead Miami Speedway. They actually burned through the tires quickly on this test, and also the big change for him is having a weight jacker. He kind of talked about that, and he's just getting the feel for it. But completed his first oval test. Obviously, you have the first scary moment, and you move on, but seemed to be enjoying the test. Let's dive into the mailbag this week from Racer.
Plenty to get to in the mailbag.
Yes. So I got to pull up the notes. You always send me a weekly recap of what to expect.
Now, I found this interesting. Honda and Chevy waiting for their this charters for manufacturers idea to decide whether they're staying or not. And this was from Marshall Pruitt in the mailbag. So we keep talking about moving the goalposts, right, with Honda and Chevy every time. Now, we don't really kind of understand what this charters for manufacturers idea is, but it sounds like the OEMs are interested in it.
Elsewhere, I did find it. A Portland event on borrowed time, perhaps last year for it. Unfortunately, that's not surprising. They simply need to sell more tickets. They need to do more with sponsorship. I mean, somehow BitNile.com is still listed as the sponsor. This event needs a real boost. Fans in the Pacific Northwest, in the U.S. and also in Canada, I mean, if you want this event to stay on the schedule, you're going to have to show up. And to be fair, I do think the racetrack needs some improvements. I think there's a lot to be desired in terms of the visual presentation, at least for IndyCar race weekend. I don't know if they're still going there for Formula E, but the one time Formula E was there, the track and just the visuals looked a lot better for Formula E than it did for the IndyCar weekend. But it's unfortunate that this event's on borrowed time. The drivers and teams seemingly don't like it. It's very accessible in terms of it's close to a market, a region of the country. The IndyCar only has one race. That you're actually outshining NASCAR because NASCAR doesn't have anything in that area. It has easy access to get to with a light rail stop, but
it's just not.
Yeah, it's just
you're bringing in people.
No. Yeah, so those are kind of the mailbag notes for this week. This is cool. It's back. The Indy 500 Prairie Farms branded milk bottles back for 2026.
All right.
And it's an expansion. They go from 8 states like they had last year to 20 states this year. More than 25,000 retailers for 2026. 200 million half-pint cartons distributed to schools in those same 20 states. So a huge, huge expansion. You have Scott Dixon, you have Alexander Rossi, you have Alex Palou, you have Joseph Newgarden, and you have Elio Castroneves on it for this year.
Very nice.
So I hope to find that in my local convenience store. I'm not sure when this starts back up in terms of when we should look for them in stores.
April-ish?
I would assume. Okay, March 1st is when they'll start
very nice.
being in retail locations. So plenty of time to collect all 5.
Ooh.
Sounds like an ad from the 90s. Collect all 5.
Yeah. But empty the milk out of it if you're going to keep them.
The Phoenix test for IndyCar, Wednesday, February 18th, the Unser IndyCar Open test, free, open to the public. You can sit near the start-finish line to enjoy the testing there. First 300 fans to the Phoenix Raceway display in the Midway will receive a wristband granting access to an autograph session as well. So that's cool. They're making this, again, everyone asking, is it going to be streamed? I hope so, but it's unclear. Mark Miles, so I said Mark Miles had said something, and Nathan Brown, the Indy Star, former IndyCar beat writer, now covers the Colts, posted this. Mark Miles 4 months ago, I don't think a 2026 race in DC was ever feasible. It's a temporary street circuit. You all know how much is involved trying to make that work. Imagine trying that in the nation's capital with less than a year's notice. It wasn't in the cards.
I think, it's easy to kind of point at Mark Miles and say, once again, he put his foot in his mouth. But when the president of the United States gets involved,
it changes things.
Yes. In making something happen, it's a fair bet that it's going to be happening. And that was the big change here. Somebody in the administration, the transportation secretary, fell in love with the idea. And it's if you get the president of the United States on board for anything, chances are it's going to happen.
Exactly. I think that's the big change. A former IndyCar driver coming back will be racing at St. Pete, but not in IndyCar, obviously, but in trucks. Dario Franchitti will be back. He'll be in the number 1 truck for Tricon Garage at St. Pete. I believe Jimmy Johnson will also be competing in this race. It is not going to be Dario Franchitti's first NASCAR. What is it? Back to the Craftsman Truck Series, or is it?
I have no idea.
I think so, but his one previous Truck Series start was at Martinsville in 2007. Spent some time in the top 15. Dropped out, finished with a DNF in 33rd.
It is the Craftsman Truck Series.
Okay, so it's the O'Reilly. It used to be Xfinity, but now it's O'Reilly.
But no, it's back as the Craftsman.
Well, no, I'm talking Xfinity's now,
yes,
O'Reilly,
sorry.
and then it is Craftsman Truck Series. So
correct.
There you go. The IMS Museum offering free admission Monday, February 16th for President's Day. You need to reserve your free ticket online, imsmuseum.org/tickets. So a fun activity if the kids have the day off school to take them there, or even just go if you have the day off to check it out. If you haven't checked it out, it's completely redone, and it's truly incredible what they did with that. A couple other quick things. Connor Daly, back on his podcast Speed Street, basically said there's still a chance he shows up at St. Pete. He definitely will be at least in the Indy 500, could be doing more races. He could even be at the Sebring test next week. So there's a lot of chaos behind the scenes. So keep an eye out for that. And with that, did we miss anything? Obviously, DC being the big story.
Yeah, I don't think so. Busy week in the off season and adding an 18th race. Who would have thunk?
The track build event underway for St. Pete as well. So they had interviews and media out there earlier today for that. And with that, time for the tweets of the week. And we actually have several. First off, this from Tony DeZino. Hours later, it hits me that we got the Freedom 250 added before the Freedom 100 back. And then to follow that up, Save the Freedom 100 posted, didn't sign an executive order to bring back the Freedom 100... mistake. And then finally, Tony DeZino, the irony of a street course race being announced in the Oval Office.
Ooh.
Thought that was funny. And actually, there's one more I forgot. This is from one of our listeners, Nick J. Fletcher. Posted it in, the flex tape
Yeah.
So Roger
I like
Penske
this one.
slapping the rehiring Tim Cindric, all the water still oozing out of the container. Oh, slapping it on Freedom 250. Nice distraction from the Tim Cindric.
Very
stuff.
much buried that story.
Yes.
Didn't it?
Very quickly, too, at that. I thought that was really funny. So with that, it's time to send us to our random split air driver of the week.
You know, not every random split era driver of the week is an unknown name.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
And so this person named Evelyn Jean Cornwall, or at least that was she was born as. Nobody really knows who Evelyn Jean Cornwall is, but they do know who Lynn St. James is.
I'm learning things here.
And she was born Evelyn Jean Cornwall. Actually, she wasn't. Her name, actually, she was born Carol Jean Cornwall, but shortly after birth, her first name was changed to Evelyn after her aunt. Eventually, she would adopt the professional name Lynn St. James in her business and racing activities. She got the idea from actress Susan St. James. So I did not know that Lynn St. James wasn't even a real name.
I didn't either.
But Lynn St. James, obviously known for her exploits at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and actually speed in general. She set the world closed course speed record for women 3 times. She became the first woman driver to reach over 200 miles an hour on a racetrack when she drove a Ford Mustang Probe GTP to a lap of 204 miles per hour at Talladega in 1985. She used a Ford Thunderbird stock car to set the mark in 1988 at 212 miles an hour, and during qualifying for the 1995 Indianapolis 500, ran a lap of 225.722. As far as her split era exploits, we mentioned her teammate at Zuna Group Racing last week, But for Lynn St. James in 1996, in the inaugural season of the Indy Racing League, she raced at all 3 races for 3 different teams. Simon Scandia Racing at Walt Disney World, where she finished 8th. Team Scandia at Phoenix, where she finished 21st. And Zune Group Racing, where she finished 14th at Indianapolis. After that, she did Indy in 96, 97 for Hemmelgarn. She did not qualify in 98 or 99. And in 2000, her final appearance is she finished 32nd for Dick Simon Racing in 2000. She actually didn't appear in very many races as much as I thought. Only 16 total races.
And most of those
kart and IndyCar.
Indy 500.
Or IRL, yeah. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of those 16 races were Indianapolis 500. In fact, 7.
Yeah, really 7.
Because she did not qualify in 98 and 99. Her best start was 6th in 1994. That's when she was racing for Dick Simon Racing. And that was also one of 4 times that she finished 19 or better. Of course, her best finish was her rookie season, 1992, also for Dick Simon Racing. But again, her last finish is she came back around for Dick Simon Racing in 2000, that 32nd place appearance in the 2000 Indianapolis 500. In terms of split era, it was 5 total races, 3 of which were Indy 500 races. Her best finish of 8th at Walt Disney World Speedway. That also was her all-time best finish in open wheel racing. I did not know this too. She raced several years in the 12 Hours of Sebring. Actually won the 12 Hours of Sebring with teammates Robbie Gordon and Calvin Fish.
That's a who's who of drivers there on that team.
Absolutely.
With Roush Racing.
For sure. Also started a couple years in the 24-hour Le Mans and did not finish in either one of those years. But Lynn St. James, also known as Evelyn Jean Cornwall, this week's random split era driver of the week.
And you mentioned her Sebring results. One year in 79, she teamed with Janet Guthrie and Bonnie Henn.
How about that?
They finished 8th in their class in the GTO class. So,
really cool. So
17th overall.
Very much a trailblazer of women in motorsports, and really was a big part of the Indianapolis 500, of course, in the 90s, and did not know. She raced so few races, Miss Lynn St. James. You and I know her as Evelyn Jean Cornwall. Still with us, 78 years old. Lynn St. James, a native of Willoughby, Ohio.
I didn't know she was from Ohio either. Huh. Very cool. Well, learning so much with this week's Random Split Air Dry of the Week. So we'll be back next week to recap the news that obviously will come out tomorrow, whatever that will be.
Whatever it is.
Along with other IndyCar news as we inch closer to St. Pete, just a few weeks away. It's already less than a month to go for the start of the 2026 NTT IndyCar Series season. For Justin Kinney, I am Caleb Hatch. Thanks for joining us on another edition of New Track Record Podcast.